Japan has upped the ante in its dispute with South Korea over a group of disputed islands. The Japanese Foreign Minister has described South Korea's control of the islands as illegal occupation. Tokyo's long wanted the dispute settled by the International Court of Justice, but Seoul says that's not even worth considering. Former Japanese ambassador to Britain, Yoshiji Nogami, is now president of the Japan Institute for International Affairs. Ambassador, good to be talking to you.
Same to you.
The plethora, the vast number of territorial disputes in the Asia-Pacific at the moment, does this suggest, I wonder, whether the nations of Asia have achieved economic power before they've achieved political maturity?
Normally, territorial issues have a long history behind it. But this Senkaku became an issue only in the late 1970s. Up until then, it was a very, very quiet.
But it's not just Senkaku, it's Takeshima, it's also a whole raft of disputes in the South China Sea, which are very serious, are they not?
Yes. But, Takeshima is also an issue, has become an issue after the San Francisco Peace Treaty. So, compared to other historical territorial issues, they are still, they're not really historical issues.
Are these two disputes which have flared up recently, the one with China and one with Japan, are they really about territory? Aren't they more about resources, both fish stocks within the seas and energy below the seabed?
Well, the Senkaku, I think, became an issue when, in 1978, the United Nations geological report came up on the maritime energy resources. But in fact, it is not really a huge energy, reservoir. But it is becoming a sort of issue because of, I would say, it's a rich fishery area. And as China gets richer, they start eating more fish. And if you take a look at the current situation, there are so many Chinese fishing boats around there.
But don't the policymakers in not just Tokyo, but in Seoul and in Beijing understand that these are things which in Europe were settled, these sorts of things were settled half a century ago, yes. And given the economic power that Asia now wields, it has a responsibility to resolve them for the good of the world economy, if nothing else.
Japan has been trying to settle this issue through the international, through the court of, the ICJ, International Court of Justice at The Hague. But somehow, our friend on the other side doesn't want to bring this issue to the ICJ court.
Do you think, though, given what has happened and the intransigence on both sides, that resolution in the short to medium term is really possible?
No, for instance, this Senkaku issue was, flared up because of this activist, the Hong Kong, the landing of Hong Kong activists. And in 2009, this drunken captain rammed his boat into, our Coast Guard boat, and all these, somebody tried to flare this thing up, and I think governments can contain these issues. At the moment, there is not the sort of real government-to-government confrontation on Senkaku at the moment, between Japan and China. But in the case of Korea, I think government on the other side, the Korean government is trying to sort of make an issue out of this.
But it does point to the lack of political maturity, does it not, if issues of nationalism are allowed to get in the way of the development and growth of world trade?
Well, I'm not in a position to talk about whether the Korean president is mature enough or not. But obviously, he wanted to make some sort of a populist move, trying to appeal to this fairly base nationalistic sentiment in Korea. We not only this landing on the Takeshima Island, but also inflammatory statement about the historical issues, emperor, and I think I don't understand the intention. The Japanese public is very much upset about the alleged statement by the Korean senior officials about the Japanese emperor.
On Senkaku, the United States is asking, pleading, demanding that China and Japan hold discussions to try to resolve the issue. Do you understand that it would be catastrophic were the Americans to be drawn too heavily into a dispute between Japan and China, forced to take sides?
No, I think United States, what the U.S. is saying is not to, well, Japan and China should talk about not to flare this up, but they are not talking about the territorial aspect, because Senkaku was actually occupied by the United States as a part of Okinawa. And at the time Okinawa was returned to Japan, Senkaku was also returned to Japan. So there is no territorial aspect. The U.S. knows that.
But if the United States is dragged into a dispute between Japan and China, inevitably it would have to take sides.
Well,
if it does take sides, then this would be bad for relationships with either Beijing or with Tokyo, and for the whole region.
Actually, U.S. position is clear. If something happens around Senkaku, it's covered by the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty.
Well, if that were brought into play and into force, then it would be truly trouble, wouldn't it?
Not very likely, but But it is under the area covered by the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty.
Ambassador, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.